Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we're going to continue with Unit 10, and this is actually our last lesson in Unit 10. We're going to continue moving on a coordinate plane, but we're going to add two things to it to kind of step up our last lesson. So our goal today I will learn how to move around correctly in a coordinate plane using something called cardinal directions. So cardinal directions are right here. Cardinal directions are using the words north, east, south, and west. In our last lesson, we moved around and we gave directions, but we used directions such as up, down, left, right. Now we're going to be using different types of directions. So this picture here is called a compass rose. And what a compass rose is it just shows directions on a map or a coordinate plane. Okay, so when I first learned about north, east, south, west, I learned this silly little sentence. The way that I remember it is I remember never eat sour watermelons. And that's the order that we follow. It's very, very important that you memorize the order. Okay. That's called a mnemonic tool or a mnemonic device. It's just when you put words together to help you remember something. So mine, again, is never eat sour watermelon. Now, I've heard other ones. I've heard never eat soggy waffles. I've also heard never eat shredded wheat from some of my other students. I don't care which one you remember, you just need to be able to write them in the correct direction. I've also heard some people say that they never forget the north and the south, and then for west and east, they remembered it spells we, okay? All right, moving on. So there's no notes tonight, so we do have some new steps. So first we're going to write never eat sour watermelon or north, east, south, west on the edges of your coordinate plane. So you're just going to put these letters here to help you refer back to them as you do your work. Okay, this is going to be the hard one. I'm going to put a star. You're going to read your problem carefully to see if you are being given the starting point or the ending point. Okay, we didn't have this in our last lesson, so this is new as well. Okay, if you're given the starting point, follow the directions using all the steps from the previous lesson. So this is what we practiced last time. Okay, this is the new thing we're going to practice. If you are given the ending point, you will need to backtrack or do the opposite. Okay, so what that step is talking about, it would be talking about if you were to walk from your house to school and you said, oh, I went north 3 blocks and I went east 2 blocks. Well, when you go home, you're not going to follow those same directions. You're not going to go north 3 blocks again and east 2 blocks. You're going to do the opposite. So this is what this one's referring to, is we're going to have to do some opposite directions. Okay, so what does this really look like? Let's try one. Or actually, let me try one and you watch. Okay, here's my first problem. Christine, let me make it a little smaller so you can see it, sorry. Christine is at the coffee house. To get to the bagel shop, she needs to go 3 blocks east and 4 blocks north. What is the location of the bagel shop? Okay, so let's get started. So my first step says I'm going to make sure I label this. So never eat sour watermelon. That's what step 1 is. Okay, step 2 says, now I'm going to read it carefully again and ask myself, did they tell me where I'm starting and that's what they gave me, or did they tell me where I ended up and they're asking where I started? So Christine's at the coffee house. To get to the bagel shop, she needs to go 3 blocks east and 4 blocks north. What is the location of the bagel shop? Okay, so to me this sounds like they told me where she's at and they're giving me directions for where she's going to end up. So the coffee house is her first location and the bagel shop is her second location. So I would say for this, if I was looking at my steps, they gave me the starting point. That's where I'm starting, is at the starting point. So here is the real coffee shop, and that's her first stop. That's where her first place she's at. Okay, now they tell me the bagel shop, she needs to go 3 blocks east. So east is over here. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3 blocks east, because it was right there. And now I'm gonna go 4 blocks north. 1, 2, 3, 4. She is at her second stop, which happens to be called a bagel shop. Okay, so what's the location of her bagel shop? Well, I need an X and a Y. So my bagel shop's X is 5, and my bagel shop's Y is 9. Okay, so that problem was really similar to our last lesson. The next one is where it's going to get a little tricky. Let me fold this really quickly. Okay, so now let's look at this one. Okay, if the library is located 2 blocks west and 3 blocks north of the church, where is the church located? Okay, well, I'm going to first start by getting my coordinate plane ready. Never eat sour watermelons, and I just go clockwise like a clock. Okay, now I need to read it again and really ask myself, are they telling me where I'm starting, or did they tell me where I ended up? Okay, so let's read this again. If the library is 2 blocks west and 3 blocks north of the church, where is the church located? Okay, this one actually, they're telling me the ending point. Because they said the library, they told me how to get to the library from the church, but they didn't tell me how to get from the church to the library. So, I'm sorry, to the church from the library. They said the library, the second spot, was 2 blocks west and 3 blocks north of the church. Where is the church? So this one's the opposite, which is going to be really tricky. So this means we ended up here at the library. Oops, sorry, I missed my point there. We ended up here. Where's the church at, though? Well, so here's my directions, 2 blocks west and 3 blocks north. The library is 2 blocks west of the church. So let's think of this. If the library is here, should I go west? Should I go here and put the church here? No, because then that means the church, if we put the church right here, right there, that means the church is west of the library. But it says the library is 2 blocks west, which means I need to actually move over here for the library. Now, would it make sense if the library is here? Let's see. If the church is here, does that mean then the library is on the west side of the church? Yep, it does. So this is where I have to go backwards. So instead of 2 blocks west, I'm going to go 2 blocks east. Okay, it also says the library is 3 blocks north of the church. So let's read that again. The library is 3 blocks north of the church. So that means the library has to be north of the church, which means the church has to be south. So instead of north, I'm going to have to go south. 3. And this is where I think the church is. Now let's see if this makes sense now. Is the library really 2 blocks west of the church? Yep. Is the library really 3 blocks north of the church? Yes. So this one takes a lot more thinking and working out when they told you your second location first. I'm sorry, when they told you only your second location. Okay, so now our question is, where's the church? Well, let's get our X and Y ready. My X for my church is 10, and my Y for my church is 2. So my answer is 10, 2. Okay, let's try some of these. So here is my first one. Okay, so we know that we're going to first start with never eat sour watermelons. We also should start by labeling our point, which look at, it's right there on the x-axis. Okay, so now let's read this. Greg is at the barber shop. Ooh, I'm betting that's the barber shop because those look like scissors. To get to the bagel shop, he needs to go 6 blocks east and 5 blocks west. I'm sorry, 6 blocks east and 5 blocks north. What is the location of the bagel shop? Okay, so I have to really ask myself, are they telling me where he first is and they're having me go somewhere? Or are they telling me his ending point and asking me where he started? So I might read it one more time. Greg is at the barber shop. To get to the bagel shop, he needs to go 6 blocks east and 5 blocks north. What's the location of the bagel shop? So to me, it's pretty clear. This is his first stop, and they're telling me how to get to his second stop. So it says to go 6 blocks east. So here's my east. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks east and 5 blocks north. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is where our bagel shop, we could say maybe bagel shop, and our second location is. Okay, so they want to know what the location is. So we need our X and our Y. So my X is right there, 9, and my Y is 5. Okay, let's try our last one together. Okay, so I'm going to start by labeling never eat sour watermelon. Ooh, I see those scissors again, so I'm going to mark my point, which is at the very tip. Okay, let's read our problem. If the barber shop is located 8 blocks east and 4 blocks north of the cinema, where is the cinema located? Cinema is just a fancy word for movie theater. Okay. So now I have to ask myself, are they telling me where he started? Are they giving me his starting point? Or are they telling me his ending point? So if the barber shop is located 8 blocks east and 4 blocks north of the cinema, where is the cinema located? So this one's that tricky ending point. So they gave me directions from the cinema to the barber shop. So I need to figure out where the first place is. Okay, so let's think about this. I see 8 blocks east. So the barber shop is east of the cinema, which means I actually have to go west. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, does that make sense if the barber shop is here and the cinema's here? Because it says the barber shop's 8 blocks east of the cinema. Yep. So the barber shop's on the east side of the cinema. Okay, let's read this. If the barber shop is 4 blocks north of the cinema, so the barber shop has to be north of the cinema, which means the cinema has to be south. So instead of going 4 blocks north, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 south. And I think that's where my cinema is. So my first location and my second. I'm sorry, I switched that. My first and my second. Okay, so let's see if this now works. If the barber shop is 8 blocks east, is the barber shop really 8 blocks east of the cinema? Yep. If the barber shop is 8 blocks east and 4 blocks north, is the barber shop 4 blocks north? Yes, which means I did this part correct. So my question then says, where is the cinema located? Well, I know I need my X and my Y. So the cinema, what's the X for the cinema? The X for the cinema is 0. And the Y for the cinema is 3. So that is my answer. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, again, this is going to go with this one, this is going to go with this one, and then rate yourself. Have a good evening. Good night.